The year was 2147, and Earth was dying. Daniel Carter stood at the entrance of Underground Bunker 7 and looked up at the sky. It was orange and red, filled with dust and ash that blocked the sun. 3 months ago, a massive solar flare had struck the planet. Half of the surface was burned. The oceans were poisoned. The air was toxic in most places. He was 26 years old, but he felt much older. His parents had died 2 weeks ago from radiation sickness. He had buried them himself in the hard, cracked earth behind the bunker. There was no time for a proper funeral. There was never time for anything anymore except survival. Daniel walked back inside the bunker. It was a military installation built into the mountains of Nevada, now home to almost 3,000 survivors. The walls were gray metal. The lights flickered because the power generators were failing. The air smelled like sweat and fear and recycled oxygen. He made his way to the command center, where General Patricia Hayes was studying a map of the surface. She was 60 years old with gray hair and tired eyes. She had been a hero once, leading missions across the solar system. Now she was just trying to keep people alive for one more day. "How bad is it?" Daniel asked. Patricia did not look up from the map. "Food supplies will last another 2 months. Water filtration is failing. Medical supplies are almost gone." She finally met his eyes. "We sent out distress signals to every species in the galaxy. No one responded." Daniel was not surprised. Humanity had only discovered faster-than-light travel 50 years ago. They were newcomers to the galactic community, a small and unimportant species on the edge of known space. The great empires and federations had no reason to care about them. "So we die alone," Daniel said. Patricia nodded slowly. "It seems that way." That night, Daniel could not sleep. He lay on his thin mattress in the crowded sleeping quarters and listened to the sounds of people crying, coughing, praying. A child somewhere was asking for water, and her mother was telling her there was none to spare. He thought about his parents. His father had been an engineer who helped build the first human starship. His mother had been a doctor who treated patients in the outer colonies. They had believed in humanity's future among the stars. They had died believing that future would never come. Daniel closed his eyes and tried not to think about tomorrow. The next morning, everything changed. An alarm rang through the bunker, loud and sharp. Daniel jumped from his bed and ran to the command center. Soldiers were shouting and pointing at screens. Patricia was standing in the middle of the chaos, her face showing an emotion Daniel had not seen in months. Hope. "3 ships just entered Earth's orbit," she said. "They're not human." Daniel pushed his way to a screen and looked at the sensor data. 3 large vessels were descending through the atmosphere. They were shaped like crystals, smooth and elegant, catching the weak sunlight and reflecting it in rainbow colors. "Who are they?" Daniel asked. Patricia shook her head. "I don't know. We've never seen ships like these before." The alien vessels landed a kilometer from the bunker entrance. Daniel was part of the team that went out to meet them. He wore a radiation suit and carried a weapon, though he doubted it would do much good against beings who could cross the stars. The air outside was hot and smelled like burning. The ground was covered in gray ash. In the distance, Daniel could see the ruins of what had once been a city. Now, it was just twisted metal and broken concrete. The crystal ships sat on the ground like jewels dropped from heaven. As Daniel and his team approached, a door opened in the largest ship, and beings emerged. They were beautiful. The aliens had bodies made of living crystal. They were tall and thin, with long limbs that moved with grace. Their skin was translucent, and light seemed to flow through them like water. When they walked, they made soft chiming sounds like wind through glass bells. One of them stepped forward. It was taller than the others, and its crystal body had a deep blue color. When it spoke, its voice was gentle and musical. "We are the Valorians. We have come to help. Daniel did not understand. Why? You don't know us. We have nothing to offer you. The Valorian tilted its head, and colors rippled across its crystalline face. We heard your distress signals. We saw your world burning. We could not watch and do nothing. Behind the Valorian, the cargo doors of the 3 ships opened. Inside, Daniel could see crates stacked from floor to ceiling. Thousands of crates filled with food, medicine, seeds, water purifiers, power cells, and technology that humans had never seen before. This is not possible, Daniel whispered. The Valorian extended a crystalline hand toward him. My name is Ethan. I am an elder of my people. We are not strong. We have no great army or powerful weapons. The galaxy does not listen to us. But we have kindness, and we have these supplies. Please, let us help you. Daniel looked at the hand, then at the ships, then at the dying world around him. He thought about his parents, about the child asking for water, about the 3,000 people in the bunker who had given up hope. He took Ethan's hand. It was cool and smooth, like touching polished glass. Thank you, Daniel said, and his voice broke. Tears ran down his face inside his helmet. Thank you. Ethan made a soft chiming sound that Daniel would later learn was the Valorian way of smiling. You do not need to thank us. This is simply what beings should do for each other. Over the next few weeks, the Valorians worked alongside the humans. They taught them how to use the water purifiers and medical devices. They helped plant the seeds in underground farms. They shared their knowledge freely and asked for nothing in return. When Daniel asked Ethan why the Valorians had come when no one else would, the elder gave a simple answer. The strong species of the galaxy looked at your world and saw nothing of value. They calculated the cost of helping and decided it was too high. But we did not calculate. We simply saw beings in pain and wanted to ease that pain. That is all. Daniel never forgot those words. Years passed. The Valorians eventually left, returning to their own distant world. But by then, humanity had recovered. The population grew. Technology advanced. Humans built new ships and new colonies and spread across the stars. And everywhere they went, they told the story of the Valorians. In schools and homes, in military academies and government buildings, children learned about the crystalline beings who had saved humanity when no one else cared. Daniel Carter lived to be 93 years old. He became a leader and then a legend. Before he died, he established a law that every human child would learn. Remember those who help you. Remember their names and their faces and their kindness. And when they need you, move heaven and earth to be their dot, because mankind never forgets a favor. And their payback can shake worlds. 300 years had passed since the day the Valorians saved humanity. Commander Laura Bennett stood on the bridge of the starship, relentless dawn, and watched the stars streak past the view screen. She was 42 years old, with short brown hair and sharp gray eyes. She had served in the United Earth Navy for 20 years and commanded her own ship for 5. The Relentless Dawn was a heavy cruiser, one of the fastest ships in the fleet. It carried a crew of 300 and enough firepower to destroy a small moon. Right now, it was on a routine patrol near the edge of human space. Laura was thinking about dinner when the communication officer spoke up. Commander, we're receiving a priority transmission from Earth Command. It's marked urgent. Lavra turned to face the young woman at the communication station. Her name was Megan Torres, and she had been on the ship for only 6 months. Her face was pale. Put it through, Lavra said. The main screen flickered, and the face of Admiral Nathan Cole appeared. He was an old man with silver hair and a scar that ran down the left side of his face. He had fought in a dozen wars and commanded the entire human fleet. Lavra had never seen him look worried before. He looked worried now. Commander Bennett, I'm sending you tactical data. Review it immediately. Lavra nodded to her tactical officer, Lieutenant Kevin Price. He was a tall man with dark skin and steady hands. He pulled up the data on his screen and studied it for a moment. Then he went very still. "Commander," he said quietly, "you need to see this." Laura walked over to his station and looked at the screen. It showed a star system far from human space, in a region she knew well from her history lessons. It was the Valorian home system. The system was surrounded by enemy ships. 47 warships, Kevin said, all belonging to the Kreth Dominion. They've already destroyed 3 Valorian colonies. Now they're attacking Valoria Prime itself. Lavra felt cold. She had learned about the Valorians as a child, like every human did. She knew the story of how they had saved her ancestors. She had seen pictures of the crystalline beings in her school books, had written essays about their kindness, and now someone was trying to kill them all. Why? She asked. What do the Kreth want? Kevin pulled up more data. Valorian crystals. Their bodies contain a rare mineral that can power Kreth war machines for centuries. The Kreth have been harvesting them. The word harvesting made Laura feel sick. On the screen, Admiral Cole spoke again. The Galactic Council has declared non-intervention. They say the Kreth are too powerful, that any interference would start a larger war. They're going to let the Valorians die. Lavra clenched her fists. And what does Earth say? The Admiral's eyes hardened. Earth says to hell with the Galactic Council. The Valorians saved us when no one else would. We're gonna save them now. Lavra felt her heart beat faster. What are my orders, sir? Get to Valoria Prime as fast as you can. Engage any Kreth forces you encounter. Reinforcements are on the way. The Admiral paused. This isn't just a military operation, Commander. This is payback 300 years in the making. Make it count. The screen went dark. Laura turned to face her crew. They were all looking at her, waiting. She could see fear in some faces, determination in others. They all knew what this meant. They were going to war against one of the most brutal empires in the galaxy. You all know the story, Lavra said. 300 years ago, humanity was dying. Everyone turned away from us. Everyone except the Valorians. They came to our world with food and medicine and hope. They asked for nothing in return. They saved us because it was the right thing to do. She paused and looked at each of her crew members in turn. Now, it's our turn. The Valorians are dying, and the galaxy is turning away from them. But we won't turn away. We're gonna fly into that system, and we're gonna fight for them. Just like they fought for us. Helmsman Christopher Blake, a young man with red hair and freckles, raised his hand. Commander, there are 47 enemy ships. We're just one cruiser. Laura smiled. We won't be alone for long. The entire human fleet is mobilizing. By the time we get there, we'll have enough ships to darken the sky. She turned to face the view screen. Set course for Valoria Prime. Maximum speed. Christopher's hands moved across his console. Course set, Commander. At maximum burn, we'll arrive in 14 hours. Then let's not waste any time. All hands, battle stations. The ship hummed as its engines powered up to full. The stars outside the view screen blurred as the relentless dawn jumped to faster-than-light speed. In her quarters that night, Laura could not sleep. She sat at her desk and looked at a small crystal that hung from a chain around her neck. It was a Valorian memory stone, passed down through her family for generations. Her great-great-grandmother had received it from a Valorian named Ethon, who had helped deliver supplies to the survivors on Earth. The crystal contained a recording, a message from Ethon to the humans he had helped save. Laura pressed the crystal, and a soft voice filled the room. It was musical and gentle, like wind through glass bells. To our friends among the humans. We do not know what the future holds. We do not know if we will ever meet again. But we want you to know that helping you is the greatest honor of our lives. You taught us that even in darkness, hope can survive. You taught us that even the smallest kindness can change the course of history. Whatever happens, please remember us kindly. And please remember that you are worthy of love and help and second chances. Always. Lavra closed her eyes and held the crystal tight. We remember, she whispered. We always remember. She thought about all the humans who were now racing toward Valoria Prime. Soldiers and engineers, doctors and pilots, young and old. They were leaving their homes and their families to fight for beings they had never met. They were risking their lives to repay a debt that was older than anyone alive. Some species in the galaxy thought humans were strange. They could not understand why humans cared so much about the past, why they kept records of every kindness and every slight. They did not realize that memory was humanity's greatest strength. Other species forgot. They moved on. They let old debts fade into history. But humans remembered. And now the Kreth. We're going to learn what that meant. Laura stood up and looked out the window of her quarters. The stars were streaking past like lines of white fire. Somewhere ahead, the Valorians were fighting for their lives, desperately holding on against an enemy that wanted to harvest them like crops. They did not know that help was coming. They did not know that humanity had heard their cries and answered. They did not know that across the galaxy, hundreds of ships were racing toward them, crewed by beings who had been taught since childhood to honor deaths and protect friends. But they would know soon, and the galaxy would never be the same. The call went out across human space, and humanity answered. On the mining colony of Titan 7, a young woman named Ashley Brooks was working deep underground when her communicator buzzed. She was 28 years old, with calloused hands and dust in her hair. She had spent 5 years drilling through rock and hauling ore to the surface. It was hard work, but it paid well. She pulled out her communicator and saw a news alert. The Valorians were under attack. Earth was mobilizing. Volunteers were needed. Ashley put down her tools and walked to the elevator. Her supervisor called after her, asking where she was going. She did not answer. She rode the elevator to the surface and walked straight to the recruitment station. The station was already crowded. Miners stood shoulder to shoulder with engineers, teachers, and shopkeepers. They all had the same look in their eyes. They had all heard the same call. Ashley signed her name on a tablet and received her assignment. She would serve as an engineer on a destroyer called the Swift Justice. The ship was leaving in 3 hours. She did not go home to pack. She did not call her family to say goodbye. There was no time, and besides, they would understand. Every human understood. The Valorians had saved them. Now it was time to return the favor. On the agricultural world of New Kansas, a retired colonel named Marcus Webb was sitting on his porch when his wife brought him the news. He was 67 years old with gray hair and bad knees. He had fought in 3 wars and earned medals that now hung in a box in his closet. He had not worn his uniform in 15 years. His wife stood in the doorway, her face tight with worry. "You don't have to go," she said. "You've done enough. Let the young ones handle this." Marcus looked at her for a long moment. Then he stood up, ignoring the pain in his joints, and walked into the house. He climbed the stairs to the attic and found the old trunk where he kept his military gear. The uniform still fit, though it was tighter than he remembered. The boots were scuffed but solid. He strapped on his sidearm and looked at himself in the mirror. An old soldier looked back at him. "They saved us," he said to his wife, who had followed him upstairs. "When we were starving and dying, and everyone else turned away, they came. They didn't ask if we were worth saving. They didn't calculate the cost. They just helped." He took her hands in his. "How can I do less?" she cried, but she nodded. She understood. She had been raised on the same stories. She knew the same history. Marcus kissed her goodbye and walked to the transport station. He would join the ground forces being assembled for the defense of Valoria Prime. His knees hurt, and his reflexes were slower than they used to be, but he could still fight. He could still make a difference, and he would die before he let the Valorians face extinction alone. On the streets of New Chicago, a group of protesters had gathered outside the government building. They were young people, mostly angry about military spending and taxes and a dozen other things. They carried signs and shouted slogans and demanded change. Then the news broke, one by one. The protesters lowered their signs. They watched the videos on their communicators, showing Valorian cities burning, Valorian ships exploding, Valorian elders pleading for help. They saw the faces of beings made of living crystal, beings who had once crossed the stars to save a dying world. By morning, half the protesters had enlisted. The other half had volunteered for support roles, packing supplies, and organizing transport. The signs they had carried now hung abandoned on the street. There would be time for politics later. Right now, there was a debt to pay. Across human space, the same scene repeated itself over and over. Ships that should have taken months to repair launched with crews working through the journey. Factories that made consumer goods switched to producing weapons and medical supplies. Schools closed so that teachers could volunteer and students could help where they could. The Galactic Council watched in amazement. They had never seen a species mobilize so quickly or so completely. Within 72 hours, humanity had assembled the largest fleet in galactic history. 412 warships, 87 carriers, 2,000 fighter squadrons, 3 million volunteers, all of them heading to the same place. All of them driven by the same purpose. Admiral Nathan Cole stood on the bridge of the flagship, Remembrance, and looked at the fleet around him. It stretched across space like a river of steel and light. He had commanded many fleets in his long career, but nothing like this. This was not just a military force. This was a statement. This was humanity showing the galaxy what it meant to honor a debt. He opened a channel to the entire fleet. 300 years ago, he began, his voice steady and strong. We were nothing. We were a dying species on a burned world, begging for help that never came. The great powers of the galaxy looked at us and saw nothing worth saving. They calculated the cost of helping and decided we weren't worth it. He paused, letting the words sink in. But the Valorians didn't calculate. They didn't weigh costs and benefits. They saw beings in pain, and they reached out to help. They gave us food when we were starving. They gave us medicine when we were sick. They gave us hope when we had none. Around him, the crew of the Remembrance stood at attention. On every ship in the fleet, humans were listening to his words. Today, we return the favor. Today, we show the galaxy what humanity is made of. Not just weapons and ships and technology, but loyalty, memory, the understanding that when someone helps you, you carry that debt forever. His voice rose. The Kreth think they can destroy the Valorians without consequence. They think the galaxy will stand by and watch, just like it watched us burn 3 centuries ago. But they forgot about us. They forgot that we remember. They forgot that we pay our debts. He clenched his fist. Today, we teach them a lesson they will never forget. Today, we show the galaxy that when you help humanity, humanity helps you back. No matter how long it takes. No matter how far we have to travel. No matter what it costs. He took a deep breath. All ships, prepare for jump. Next stop, Valoria Prime. The fleet jumped. Space rippled and twisted as 400. Ships vanished from one part of the galaxy and appeared in another. It was the largest coordinated jump in human history, a feat of engineering and logistics that other species thought was impossible. But humans have been preparing for this moment for 300 years. They had built their ships and trained their crews and perfected their technology, all with one thought in the back of their minds. Someday, the Valorians might need them, and when that day came, humanity would be ready. Now that day had arrived. The fleet emerged from hyperspace near Valoria Prime, weapons charged and shields raised. Below them, the crystalline world sparkled like a jewel against the darkness of space. And around it, the Kreth fleet waited. The battle for Valoria Prime was about to begin. The Kreth had never seen anything like it. One moment, they were winning. Their 47 warships had surrounded Valoria Prime and were systematically destroying the last Valorian defenders. The crystalline beings had only 12 small vessels, and they were burning in the void, broken and helpless. The next moment, space itself tore open. Blue light flooded the darkness as 400 human warships emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation. They came in waves, each ship taking its assigned position with mathematical precision. Carriers released fighters that swarmed like angry bees. Heavy cruisers moved to the front, their weapons already glowing with power. Commander Laura Bennett stood on the bridge of the Relentless Dawn and looked at the scene before her. The Kreth ships were huge, covered in spikes and armor plating. They looked like insects made of metal, ugly and brutal. Between them, the burning remains of Valorian ships drifted in silence. She opened a channel that broadcast on all frequencies. Kreth Dominion vessels. This is Commando Laura Bennett of the United Earth Navy. You will withdraw from Valorian space immediately. You have 30 seconds to comply. For a moment, there was silence. Then a response came, transmitted from the largest Kreth ship. The screen showed a face that made Laura's skin crawl. The Kreth commander was a massive creature with compound eyes and mandibles that clicked as it spoke. I am Skrath Prime, lord of this fleet. Humans have no claim here. This is not your war. Leave now or be destroyed. Laura did not blink. You're wrong. It became our war 300 years ago. Skrath Prime made a sound that might have been laughter. 300 years ago, you were insects crawling in the dirt. Now you fly among the stars and think yourselves powerful. But you are still insects. And insects are meant to be crushed. Larva smiled. It was not a friendly smile. Then come and crush us. The channel went dead. All ships, Larva broadcast to the human fleet, weapons free. Engage at will. Space exploded into light and fire. The Kreth were powerful. Their ships were built for war, covered in heavy armor and bristling with weapons. They had conquered dozens of species and never lost a major battle. But they had never fought humans before. Human tactics were different. Where other species attacked head-on, humans attacked from multiple angles at once. Where other species fought as individuals, humans fought as a coordinated whole. Every ship in the fleet knew its role and executed it perfectly. Lieutenant Kevin Price led a squadron of fighters toward the Kreth flagship. His small craft dodged between massive warships, weaving through fields of fire that would have destroyed any other pilot. He was not alone. 20 fighters flew with him, each one covering the others. Target the hangar bay, Kevin said into his communicator. If we can get inside, we can cripple their fighter production. The squadron dove toward the flagship. Kreth guns tracked them, firing streams of energy that lit up the void. 2 human fighters exploded, then 3 more. But the rest kept going, pushing through the fire. Kevin reached the hangar bay first. He fired his missiles at the opening, blasting through the shields. Then he flew inside, his fighters screaming through corridors that were not meant for spacecraft. Inside the hangar, Kreth soldiers scrambled to respond. Kevin opened fire with everything he had. Destroying fighters still docked on their platforms, igniting fuel stores, killing crew members who tried to stop him. Then he ejected just before his fighter crashed into the main power conduit. The explosion tore through the flagship, crippling its weapons and engines. Kevin floated in space, watching the massive ship drift helplessly. A rescue shuttle was already coming for him. "One down," he said into his communicator. 46 to go. Elsewhere in the battle, engineer Ashley Brooks was fighting to keep her ship alive. The Swift Justice had taken heavy damage from Kreth weapons. Power was failing. Life support was failing. Half the crew was dead or wounded. Ashley crawled through a maintenance tunnel, her tools clutched in her hands. Smoke filled the air, making it hard to breathe. Alarms blared in the distance. She reached the main power junction and saw the problem immediately. The primary conduit was ruptured, bleeding energy into space. The ship had minutes before total failure. Ashley made a decision. She rerouted power from life support to weapons and engines. The air would run out in 20 minutes, but that would be enough time. "All hands," she broadcast. "Hold your breath. We're going to finish this fight." The Swift Justice surged forward, its weapons blazing. It crashed into a Kreth cruiser, firing at point-blank range until both ships were torn apart. Ashley was thrown against the wall by the impact. But she was smiling. They had taken one more enemy with them, on the surface of Valoria Prime. Colonel Marcus Webb led a ground assault against a Kreth staging base. The Kreth had landed troops on the planet, hoping to capture Valorians for their crystal harvest. Marcus and his soldiers were there to stop them. The battle was brutal. The Kreth soldiers were larger and stronger than humans, with armored bodies and razor-sharp limbs. But humans were faster, smarter, and fighting for something more than victory. They were fighting for honor. Marcus ran out of ammunition in the third hour of battle. He picked up a Kreth weapon and kept firing. When that ran out too, he fought with his hands. He was 67 years old with bad knees and slow reflexes. But he had been fighting all his life. He would not stop now. By the time reinforcements arrived, Marcus was standing alone in a field of Kreth bodies. His uniform was torn and covered in blood, both his own and his enemies. He was breathing hard, but he was alive. A young soldier ran up to him. "Sir, are you okay?" Marcus looked at the young man and nodded slowly. "I'm fine, son. How's the battle going?" "We're winning, sir. The Kreth fleet is retreating." Marcus closed his eyes and felt something warm spread through his chest. They were winning. The Valorians would survive. The debt was being repaid. The battle lasted 6 hours in total. By the end, 31 Kreth warships had been destroyed. The remaining 16 fled into deep space, their commander dead and their fleet broken. Human losses were significant, with 42 ships destroyed and thousands of lives lost. But Valoria Prime was free. When the last Kreth vessel vanished from sensors, a silence fell over the battlefield. Human ships drifted among the wreckage, rescuing survivors and counting the dead. On Valoria Prime, the crystalline beings emerged from their shelters and looked up at the sky. They saw human ships, hundreds of them, standing guard over their world. Crystalline Elder Soreth, a descendant of Ethon who had helped save humanity 3 centuries ago, broadcast a message to the human fleet. "Why?" the Elder asked, its musical voice filled with wonder. "We are not your people. We have nothing to offer you. Why did you come?" Admiral Nathan Cole responded from the Bridge of the Remembrance. His voice was tired but proud. "Because you helped us when no one else would. Because 300 years ago, when we were dying in the dark, you brought us light. You asked for nothing in return. You saved us simply because it was the right thing to do." He paused, looking at the beautiful crystalline world below. "And mankind never forgets a favor." Soreth was silent for a long moment. Then the Elder made a soft chiming sound that the human translators could not interpret. Later, they would learn that it was the Valorian expression of deepest gratitude, a sound that had not been made in generations. "Thank you," Sorith said finally. "Thank you for remembering." Nathan Cole smiled. "We always remember. And we always will." The aftermath of the Battle of Valoria Prime changed the galaxy forever. News of the human victory spread across the stars like wildfire. Every species, every empire, every federation heard the story. A dying species had been saved by beings who remembered a kindness from 3 centuries ago. A debt had been paid in blood and fire and sacrifice. The galaxy had never seen anything like it. The Kreth Dominion collapsed within a decade. The loss of their fleet at Valoria Prime had broken their military power, and the species they had conquered rose up against them. One by one, the Kreth worlds fell to rebellion and invasion. The empire that had terrorized dozens of star systems became a cautionary tale, a reminder of what happened to those who forgot the importance of kindness. SK Wrath Prime. The Kreth commander, who had called humans insects, was captured by his own people and delivered to the Valorians as a peace offering. The crystalline beings, true to their nature, did not execute him. They imprisoned him instead and forced him to watch recordings of human history. He spent the rest of his life learning about the species he had underestimated. He died still not understanding how beings could carry a debt for 300 years. The Galactic Council, which had done nothing while the Valorians burned, found itself facing a new political reality. Humanity had demonstrated that they were not just another spacefaring species. They were a force that remembered, that honored debts, that would cross the galaxy to protect those who had shown them kindness. Other species began reaching out to humanity, nervous and hopeful. Many of them had helped humans in small ways over the centuries, ways that humans had recorded and remembered. Now they wondered if those small kindnesses might matter. The Morthani, a reptilian species with green scales and golden eyes, had secretly smuggled human refugees during the solar flare crisis. They had hidden survivors in their cargo holds and brought them to safety, risking their own lives to save strangers. Most Morthani had forgotten about it. The humans had not. When the Morthani homeworld was threatened by an asteroid cluster, human ships were the first to arrive. They spent months moving the asteroids, protecting a world that most species would have let burn. When the Morthani asked why, the humans showed them records from 3 centuries ago. Records of every refugee saved, every ship that had helped. "You saved our people," the human ambassador said. "Now we save yours." The Tessic, a species of brilliant navigators, had shared star charts with humanity when they first ventured into space. It was a small gift, they thought, just data that cost them nothing to provide. The humans had built on that data, using it to explore and expand and grow. When the Tessic were threatened by a plague that was killing their children, human medical ships arrived with cures and doctors and supplies. They worked for months, fighting the disease until it was contained. When the Tessic leaders wept with gratitude, the human doctors simply smiled. "You helped us find our way among the stars," they said. "How could we not help you now?" One by one, the species that had shown kindness to humanity found their kindness returned. Some of them had forgotten their own good deeds. The humans had not. Human archives contained records of every gift, every aid, every small gesture of friendship. And humans were determined to repay them all. The galaxy began to change. Species that had once ignored each other started to cooperate. Empires that had fought for generations made peace. The example of humanity spread, showing that kindness could be stronger than weapons. That memory could be more powerful than armies. Not everyone was happy about this change. Some species thought humans were foolish, wasting resources on debts that no one had asked them to pay. Others thought humans were dangerous, their long memories making them unpredictable. A few even tried to use humanity's sense of honor against them, claiming kindnesses that had never happened. Those species learned quickly that humans remembered insults as well as favors. And while humans were generous to their friends, they were terrifying to their enemies. But mostly, the galaxy came to respect humanity. They learned that humans were not the strongest species, or the smartest, or the most advanced. But they were the most loyal. They were the ones who remembered. And in a universe filled with empires that rose and fell, that quality made them something rare and precious. Commander Laura Bennett retired 5 years after the Battle of Valoria Prime. She had been offered promotions, medals, and political positions. She had turned them all down. She had done what she needed to do. She had paid her debt. Now she wanted peace. She settled on Valoria Prime in a small house built from crystalline stone. The Valorians had given her the land as a gift, a gesture of gratitude that she had tried to refuse. They had insisted. "You crossed the stars to save us," Elder Sorath had said. "Let us give you a place to rest." So Lara lived among the crystalline beings, in a home that glittered like a jewel in the light of the twin suns. She planted a garden with seeds from Earth and vegetables from a dozen different worlds. She learned to cook Valorian dishes and taught them how to make human bread. In the evenings, she sat on her porch and watched the sun set over forests of living crystal. The trees sang as the wind moved through them, a soft chiming music that never got old. Sometimes Valorians would visit her, curious about the human who had helped save their world. The young ones always asked the same question. "Why did you come? Why did your people risk so much for us?" Lara would look at them with their beautiful crystalline bodies and their innocent eyes, and she would tell them the same story every time. 300 years ago, your ancestors came to our world. We were dying. Everyone else had given up on us. But your people brought food and medicine and hope. They didn't ask for payment. They didn't want anything in return. They helped us because we needed help, and that was enough. She would pause and look up at the sky, at the countless stars that represented countless species. "We're not special because we're strong," she would say. "We're not special because we're smart. We're special because we remember. When someone helps you, you carry that with you forever. And when they need you, you move worlds to be there." The young Valorians would listen in wonder. They had grown up hearing stories about the humans who had saved them, but hearing it from one of those humans made it real. "Will you always remember us?" they would ask. Lara would smile, the wrinkles around her eyes deepening with warmth. "Always. Your ancestors saved us, and we saved you. Now we're bound together, your people and mine. That bond will never break." She would look at the setting suns, at the crystalline forests, at the peaceful world that had survived because humanity had come. "That's what it means to be human," she would say. "We remember our friends. We honor our debts. And we never, ever forget a favor." Years later, when Laura Bennett died peacefully in her sleep at the age of 91, the Valorians mourned her as one of their own. They built a memorial in her honor, a tower of living crystal that sang her name when the wind blew through it. And every year, on the anniversary of the Battle of Valoria Prime, humans and Valorians would gather at that memorial. They would tell the old stories and make new promises. They would look up at the stars and remember that somewhere out there, kindness still mattered. Because mankind never forgets a favor. And their payback can shake worlds.